When most of us think of the book of Judges, what comes to mind? It's usually those epic hero stories, right? You know, Gideon, Deborah, Samson. But what if it's not really about that at all? What if it's actually one single, chilling narrative about the total collapse of a society? That's what we're exploring today, Judges, not as a collection of hero tales, but as one big, carefully crafted cautionary tale. This right here, this is the question that beats at the very heart of the book. It's an ancient text asking a completely timeless question, and it shows us, in brutal detail, exactly what happens when a nation cuts itself loose from its moral and spiritual anchors. So the story kicks off at a really critical turning point. Joshua, the leader who had united all the tribes of Israel, well, he's dead. And with him gone, there's this huge power vacuum. There is no central government, no king, no capital city. It's just a loose confederation of tribes, and you can see right away that the cracks are starting to show. This single line is absolutely crucial. You're going to see it pop up 4 times in the book, almost like this haunting refrain. It's basically the author's diagnosis for all the chaos that's about to unfold. It is the key to understanding the entire downward spiral. The book doesn't waste any time telling us why this leadership vacuum is so dangerous. A whole new generation has come of age with a kind of collective amnesia. They've forgotten their own history, their identity, who they are. And the spiritual void, it creates the perfect conditions for anarchy to just take root and grow. Now, this isn't just a random series of chaotic events. The author actually gives us a roadmap right in chapter 2. It's this predictable, repeating cycle of failure and rescue, and it becomes the engine that drives the entire narrative forward. And here it is. It's a 5-step cycle. First, the people sin, usually by worshiping the local Canaanite gods. Second, this leads to their oppression by enemies. Third, in their misery, they cry out for help. Fourth, in response, a deliverer, a judge, is raised up to save them. And for a little while, there's peace. Until step 5, the judge dies, and they fall right back into sin, starting the whole cycle all over again. And here's the really critical detail. It's not just a circle. It's a downward spiral. The author explicitly tells us that with each turn of the cycle, the people become even more corrupt than the generation before them. We are literally watching moral decay happen in real time. This decay doesn't just happen among the people. Oh no. It's also reflected in the very leaders, the judges, who are sent to save them. They start out relatively noble, but as the book goes on, they get more and more flawed, more violent, and more morally compromised themselves. Just look at this contrast. It is so stark. Early in the book, we get leaders like Deborah. She's a wise prophetess who leads with total integrity. But by the end of the book, we get Samson. Yeah, he's incredibly strong, but he's also impulsive, arrogant, and completely driven by personal vendettas. His story is just a tragedy of wasted potential, and it perfectly mirrors Israel's own story. And then there's Gideon, who might be the most tragic figure of all. He starts out totally full of doubt, literally hiding from his enemies. But then he rises to become this great military leader. He even makes this noble declaration, refusing to be king. But then, in the very next breath, he uses the spoils of war to create a golden idol. An idol that leads his family and all of Israel right back into the very sin he just saved them from. It's heartbreaking. And the decay of leadership hits a truly shocking low, with a guy named Jephthah. He's a brilliant military strategist, sure, but he's so theologically ignorant that he makes this rash, foolish vow that results in him sacrificing his own daughter. It is a horrifying moment that just shows how far the nation's understanding of its own God has completely fallen. In the final section of the book, from chapter 17 on, things get even darker. That cycle we talked about, sin, oppression, deliverance, it just stops. The narrator zooms in on 2 horrific stories. And now the enemy isn't some foreign nation anymore. The enemy is themselves. These last 2 stories about Micah and the Levite are basically case studies in total moral anarchy. First, you see this religious chaos, where a man named Micah literally builds his own private religion with a stolen idol and a hired priest. And then you see how that religious breakdown leads to a horrifying social breakdown. And this is the event that pushes the entire nation over the edge. It's one of the most disturbing stories in the whole Bible. The brutal crime committed by Israelites against a fellow Israelite, and then the gruesome response of the Levite. It ignites this firestorm of outrage that leads directly to a massive civil war. This is the ultimate consequence of everyone doing as they saw fit. This self-destruction had been brewing for a while. We actually got a chilling preview earlier in the book. After Jephthah's big victory, the tribe of Ephraim confronts him, not to congratulate him, but to threaten him. And their arrogance just ignites this tragic and bloody internal conflict. So what was the cost of that one dispute? 42,000 men. 42,000! They were slaughtered by their own countrymen at the Jordan River. And how were they identified as enemies? Simply because they couldn't pronounce the word shibboleth correctly. It's insane. And it was a brutal preview of the massive self-destruction that was still to come. And that self-destruction reaches its absolute climax right here. In the war to punish the tribe of Benjamin for that atrocity, over 25,000 Benjamite soldiers are killed. The other tribes nearly wipe an entire tribe of their own nation completely off the map. And this is where you see the complete moral bankruptcy of the nation. I mean, it's just gone. After the war, they realize, oops, we've almost destroyed an entire tribe. But their solution isn't peace or reconciliation. No, it's more violence. They slaughter the people of a town that didn't join the war and then kidnap hundreds of young women to give as wives to the survivors. They try to solve a problem created by violence with even more horrific violence. And so, the book brings us completely full circle. It ends right where it began, with a diagnosis for all this horrifying chaos and self-destruction. The author ends the entire book with this exact same line. After showing us civil war, idolatry, rape, murder, he lands on this final damning verdict. Now, this isn't just a political statement arguing for a monarchy. It's something much deeper, a profound theological statement. When they rejected God as their king, their moral compass shattered, and everyone simply did what was right in their own eyes, which led to absolute catastrophe. Look, the book of Judges doesn't give us easy heroes or simple victories. It's not supposed to. Instead, it serves as this dark, powerful exploration of human nature and the anatomy of societal collapse. It forces us to ask, what happens when a community or even a whole nation becomes unmoored from any shared sense of truth, morality, and leadership? The book's answer is as unsettling today as it was thousands of years ago.